please. I think we're finally ready here on the technology. And we'd like to...
Oh, yeah, that's fine.
That thing's kind of jumping around after creating messages, too.
Yep.
So, just a few comments to kind of kick this thing off. The equity program was sort of the brain of both boards in the 70s. There's always been, because of our structure, some overlap between, we have some members of the HACA board who serve on the NAJ board, and then of course there are 5 elected districts of the NAJ across the country, and up to 3 at-large appointments. So depending on need. And at the time they determined we needed to establish a program like this. The Jersey breed was at one of our all-time lows. And some of you may debate that with me, but I measure things on the results. That's kind of I'm a visual learner, and if you give me some numbers and pictures and put it in front of me, I can understand it. And Jersey had peaked in numbers back near the Depression times. A few years after the Depression, on the way out of it in the early 50s, they had the highest registration count of all time up to that point historically, and that was about 87,000 animals recorded in 1 year. But pre-Depression, Jersey, and through the Depression, Jersey was about 42% of the dairy cattle population by head count on the dairy farms in the United States. Never seen it again since, but that's where we come from. And then things progressed, one thing led to another, and through several hiccups and things that did not work in favor of an efficient producing cow, it led our leadership at the time to question, what should we be doing next? How can we turn this around? That was their real question when you go back through the minutes, and it becomes very self-evident that the cow needed to change. The cow was not commercially accepted or appreciated by and large by commercial dairy farmers because she just wasn't productive enough. That was becoming very evident in the 60s, and it continued in the 70s, even after we had a couple milk bulls hit real strong, and people bred some bulls there that maybe they were using them solely because they were high production bulls, and maybe compromising and accepting some type traits because we needed to turn the breed around. But not enough people were. Started in the late 60s, through the early 70s, and in 73 or 4, we bottomed out at 33,000 registrations. Compared to today, that's not very many. Now, irony, we had twice as many active members then as we do today. And that represents the change or shift in the dairy farm size and population. But our leaders at the time had the courage. That's the key for me. Board leadership and board members at that time on both boards had the courage to determine and kick in gear efforts to change the Jersey cow and to impact or influence how we got paid for Jersey milk. So, to achieve equity in the marketplace for our milk products from our Jersey cows. So, in '76, campaign equity was established. That's 50 years ago. And I'm not going to throw very many names around y'all, but Joe Line was president of NHA. And I remember reading a lot of speeches that he and others gave during that time in the lead up to it. They had to say, folks, this is what we need to do. They had to have the courage, or summon the courage, to say, we got to change this cow, or we're going to be in the blue. So why is changing the cow got anything to do with the equity program? The equity program, right quickly as people bought in, became, in my mind, the catalyst that helped build momentum to turn the breed around. How did that work? You, as members, and all others like you, who joined the equity effort and put your money in to support it, became owners of it. We took ownership. You took ownership. To me, that's how the equity program became successful, is breeders took ownership of what could be at least part of our solution, to turn our breed around and re-achieve viability with a commercial dairy farm. So there's a lot of swings I'm touching on there across time, and since that time, across the next 50 years, Jersey gradually turned in the right direction. At first, it was slow. We had to convince people to use high milk production bulls and compromise a trait or two that maybe the bull was weak in. We had to develop tools, and we were successful with mating programs. AI companies developed mating programs to help balance and develop, breed and develop a more balanced cow. But the key is a higher performing animal, a more efficient animal. And I give our equity program, the equity effort, a lot of credit for helping us achieve those goals. So I think I'd like you to think about that as we go through. We're going to hear from folks who pioneered a lot of the effort, and really pleased to have them here. So to help kick things off, our AJCA President, Alan Chitman, for a few comments.
Yeah, I'd like to echo what Neil just said. You know, it was a partnership with AJCA going all the way through, and I've had the privilege of living that. When I was just a boy, I was born in '68, I was 7, 6, 7, 8 years old. I remember Grandpa Stanley around the pool talking about milk prices. We should be getting paid for our milk. One of his best friends was Joe Lang. And we, right there in the Lebanon Valley, there was 5 Jersey herds, and much like the Hillmar story, he went to Yankee Milk at the time and said, you know, our milk is worth more. And they said, I don't know, all milk is worth. Well, if you think your milk is worth more, go find a spot. And he did. We went to Cappiello Cheese in Schenectady, convinced them that our milk was worth more, started sending it in there. Sure enough, it was. And we had a good relationship with them. They paid us extra money right out of their pocket to get our milk and proved it could work. And then, you know, equity started about the same time. We did a great job of educating all those cheesemakers, proving that our milk was worth more. There'll be more stories coming from some other guys that's similar. And then along with that, was getting some stuff down out of the attic here this winter. Found some of the first, DHI test papers when we started in '76 out there. And it was a 9,200 pound herd average. I looked through that. Remember some of the cows even, I was only 8 years old, but I started milking as soon as we moved out there. Number one in the herd book was generators made snowdrop. I remember her. Time more milestone dancer was number 2 in the herd book. My memory was pretty good for those cows. The next generation was kind of shocked that I still remember who they were, but it was kind of neat. But, yeah, fast forward a little bit and kudos to Hillmark for all that they did. You know, similar story when they built that plant, they got told, no, you can't do it, and they proved them wrong. And tremendous amount of financial support for the programs over the years coming through there and the leaders. When I was a kid, I still remember Bill Finelli and Donnie Sherman coming on their buying trips to New England. They put bulls in the trailer and buying heifers with Tuffy Wright, and New England supported that whole Hillmark group, and you know, that pushed the jerseys, you know, the registrations took off. We couldn't make enough jerseys to fill those guys up. So now, you know, to come full circle, we've got a cow that's competitive. We've got almost all the way appreciating our milk market. The education part is done. Now we've got to convince the rest of them to fill out these final milk orders and give us the component pricing. But yeah, it's been a great story. It's not complete, but we've come a long way with our cow, with our marketing, and I just thought I'd share a few of those names, and I've had the chance to live it. It's been my life. So, next on our agenda. Thank you.
Thanks, Alan. Now, he asked me about 5 minutes ago, what do you want me to say? And I said, you don't need any help. Good job. Next person we'd like to hear from to hopefully give us a little bit of flavor about that Hillmark impact. Jonathan Merritt, representing a lot of folks out there that we supported the equity program from the beginning.
So yeah, I was asked to kind of talk about the Hillmark aspect of this. I didn't grow up in the Hillmark area, but I was about 30 minutes away. And many of you have probably heard stories of a lot of the Hillmark herd owners at the time. They met at a coffee shop every morning and had breakfast. And because of kind of the foundation of equity and the idea behind it, they talked over breakfast every morning. I mentioned that I was about 30 minutes away, so I didn't go every morning, but they would occasionally have meetings, and my family would be invited, and so we were kind of in on some of those discussions. But two things came from that, which really made, kind of put Hillmark on the map for not only jerseys, but to really help this breed grow. And those two things both been kind of alluded to, but first was Jersey Land Sires. And our herd was part of that. As was mentioned, Phil and whoever he could get to go with him would go to the New England area about once a year, get 10 or 12 bulls and bring them back. And then they were divided among the kind of core Hillmark herds, which we were one of those. Several of those bulls, and what they did is we basically just ran them with heifers at that time, and we would rotate every 6 months or so. Phil would call, hey, we got to change these bulls, and so we'd rotate them through. And some pretty impactful bulls came through that program. The main one that everyone is familiar with, we actually housed him at our dairy as a mature bull because we had 5 pins for that, and that's Highland Magic Duncan. And he is kind of not solely responsible, but a big part of how I got involved in the genomic side, because we housed the bull. We had some of the first daughters that hit really big, so we consigned one to the All-American, and so I got a trip to the All-American out of that, and that kind of introduced me to the national scene, so to speak. But those New England bulls, because most of the Hillmar herds were basically just great commercial herds that were good cows, but weren't pedigree cows. So we were bringing deep pedigree bulls from New England out, made into these cows, and we were really seeing the production come from that. And so then we ended up improving some of those bulls and selling like Duncans to feds and stuff. And so that's a big part of what helped the Hillmar area really increase in production. But at the same time, we've got these Jersey cows, good quality cows, increasing in production, but we're getting paid just for the white fluid. We knew that wasn't the right way to be paid, and those of you who know Dick Claus, he was kind of the leader. But again, over those every morning coffee shop discussions, the idea of how do we get paid for our milk, what it deserves. And so Dick and a few others started to go to some cheese plants, and from that, the idea and eventual outcome of Hillmar cheese. And because of Hillmar cheese, we could now get paid what our milk was worth. And as a result, not only did those core Jersey herds begin to expand within themselves, but several other herds in the area started to add jerseys. Hillmar cheese does take Holstein milk. In fact, there's more Holstein milk than Jersey milk going there now. But a lot of those herds started adding jerseys because of that benefit and component. And there's over now around 50,000 head of jerseys basically just in Merced County. Because at the beginning of equity, Jersey Land Sires and Hillmar cheese, and a core group of breeders that knew the benefits of the cow, knew that we could get a lot more from her, but that she was worth more than what we were being paid at the time for her milk. And because of that, not only did the Jersey breed grow in that area, but I feel the Hillmar herds really impacted the breed as a whole. Because we could do that in that area, it encouraged a lot of other breeders in the other areas to also expand, because they saw that the Jersey cow is a better cow, and it takes effort, but we can get paid for the value of the product she produces. And so equity was all a part of that, and I'm grateful for the opportunities I've had to learn from Dick Claus and Phil Finelli and Donnie Sherman and the Allums and such. It's just been a tremendous opportunity for me, and I know that they have had a tremendous impact on the Jersey breed and this association through their knowledge, their willingness to be courageous, and their leadership. So, thank you.
Thanks, Jonathan. Appreciate you sharing that with us. And as you talked, you kind of pricked my memory about times I spent with Phil and Donnie and Mr. Claus, and especially Phil and Donnie when they would make those trips back to New England. I think you said anybody that would go with it. Phil would come through Louisville in preparation for the All-American sale, drop off their consignments, pot of gold and so forth, and then they would go to New England and pick up bulls or heifers or whatever it was, come back to Louisville, and the All-American sale crew were asked to, well, can you help us take care of these out on the trailer? I don't know, some of them may not even have a health paper, I don't know. And anyway, they got away with it. But point is, most good things don't come easy. And this, as we get into some of the people that will be the next ones introduced and you'll hear from, I'm sure they'll share some stories with you. We had doors shut in our face. Jonathan just touched on, and Adam did, about, oh, you think your milk's worth so much? Whoop-de-doo, why don't you do something about it? build your own cheese plant. And so they did. It wasn't always easy. There's been times when it was discouraging. But some people persevered. So I want to remind us, as the general manager title or position in National All Jersey, a couple of these folks are not here today, at least 2 or 3 of them are. So, beginning with Mr. Guy Cruz, a guy that I wish I would have gotten to know much better. He was just retiring out as I was getting out of high school, and I met him, talked to him a few times at sales, and maybe an annual meeting, but probably a very brilliant person. And he was a pioneer in the All Jersey fluid milk program, helped train Calvin Covington, who is known and respected in this industry as an elite expert in milk marketing issues, and served as our general manager of National Jersey for several years, and 7 years as our executive secretary. Then Mike Brown, who you will hear from here in a little bit. Mike started, I think, as an area representative with Jersey Association and held a couple different positions, left one time, came back, did outstanding pioneer work for component pricing while he was on our team, and has been an ally for the Jersey breed his entire life and his entire career. Eric Metzger followed Mike as general manager of National All Jersey, and Eric spent, I guess, about 20 years as, and I think these folks, Mike and Eric are both here, and you're going to hear from them in a little bit. They spent countless hours working on your behalf. On sometimes the issue was, just about 1% of us and 99% of everybody else. But fortunately, folks persevered, the program stood, and then now the current manager of NAJ is Grady Hour, which you heard from Grady earlier today. And some key leaders, I've already mentioned 1 or 2, so I want to go through the presidents of National All Jersey Board through the equity era, beginning with Joe Lyon, 76 to 84. Richard Dick Kloss served as president of NAJ from 84 to 94. Then Ted Luther from North Carolina was NAJ president for 3 years. And then Bill Mason from Idaho served as the NAJ president for 6 years. And then Jim Allen from Hillmar, who had served on the NAJ board for I don't know how many terms, and he was elected president from 03 through 09. And then David Endress, who you will hear from a little bit later, from Wisconsin. I believe that David served 9 years as more than that on the board, but 9 as the president. And he may be the longest tenure one. And then, of course, just last year, Mr. John Kokoski retired off of the NAJ board after serving 3 or 4 terms, and he had served as president from 18 through 25. New current president, just re-elected a few minutes ago, is Corey Lutz, and you'll hear from him again here in a little bit. So, I just wanted to mention those folks, key leaders, and I do want to mention, I can't resist, Kim, John Kokoski is battling some serious health issues, and I'd like to, I just talked to him last week. He's upbeat and taking treatment, and seems like he's doing okay. He said to tell you he would love to be here if he was able, but you better not travel right now. So keep John in your thoughts. So to get back into speakers here, I'd like to ask Mr. David Enders to come forward, and, as a recovering Holstein breeder, we haven't forgotten that.
Yeah.
Well, morning, everybody. Anyways, the recovering Holstein breeder part all started back when my late wife and I were honored with the Young Jersey Breeder Award, which is what totally got me involved in this organization, and now my kids are here today to receive the Young Jersey Breeder Award. So that's been quite an honor.
Very cool.
But, couple of things on my end, you know, we kind of keeping it casual from that end. But, you know, when I started, you know, equity was already here, I came in, David Brandel sitting over there's the reason that I was in equity at all in the first place. Thought he was feeding me a line of crap when he showed up originally. But he managed to talk me into it, and haven't regretted that any. One of the big things that we dealt with in the process, some of the reasons we switched was actually not only I started looking at the economic side because of the fact that I was milking cows, milking Holsteins in a very small barn. And when you looked at remodeling the barn and losing stalls, the first thing that came to mind was, all right, well, if I remodel the barn, I'm gonna milk less cows. I don't wanna milk less, I wanna milk more. So that started it, then started doing the finances and started doing it, and it actually was a Hoard's Dairyman article that it was Dan Manson was on the cover, and they showed his rolling average, and I took 20% off of that average and did the math, calculated it back to what I was getting in production on the Holsteins, and after I did that, I looked at it and I said, I think I'm milking the wrong cow. And so that's when we bought the first Jersey, bought her at a protein sale actually, up in Fond du Lac for $750, and every time I milked the cow, she took the hat off my head and everything, and it was obnoxious as hell, but I turned around and we bought a few more, and they're not any less obnoxious than they were back then. Yeah, well, start raising the steers. Some of you raise the steers. You think, and if you raise the steers, you know very well that the females are mild compared to the steers. They're obnoxious. But anyway, so we've, you know, evolved here. We went from 50 cows to over 900 now, and working on, Mitchell and Sydney are both working on taking over. You probably heard some dirt on me last night when they were talking about the first year.
Oh, they were not.
But through the process, a couple of highlights was when I was on the board, we started the Queen of Quality and started doing the value-added conferences, which I thought were really good. Eric had a project that we really thought was going somewhere for component pricing in the Southeast, and politics really got in the way on that one. It was really a disappointment when it happened, but you find out that politics can ruin your best laid plans pretty fast. Looking forward, I think we have to look at things we always have to look at things different, and I'm kind of notorious for that. Don't like to follow, like to do something different. But doing a little bit of my own research here, we may have a market for our black calves that we're all breeding right now as potential beef cows. We have the shortage of beef cows in the industry, and we're only keeping enough replacements. If we're gonna breed the animal black anyways to try and get more out of that calf that we're planning on price, let's take those females and let's see if there isn't a market to turn around and put them into the beef industry. And you know, a simple math that I have right now is $500 to $1,000 a head to be gained off of doing that if we can make that market work. So I'm just challenging equity on that side, that we always got to be looking at different things. So from an NHA standpoint, maybe it should look at it. Maybe there's nothing there. This is just anecdotal at this point from everything that I'm hearing, but that's there. And I'd just like to wish Vicki and Neil good luck on their retirement. I don't ever see a date, so, I don't know. I always tell the kids that think I'm gonna be there working every day anyways for them, so. I guess I don't know when mine comes. As long as I can take off once in a while. It was miserable to get here.
You're young yet.
So anyways, thank you very much.
Thanks, Dave. And, no, your kids were very nice to you last night. It was a good program that we had. It was very entertaining. So, next up, I'd like to invite Mike Brown, to share his thoughts with us. He's a longtime Jersey friend and former employee as general manager of National Jersey.
Thank you, Neil, and it's great to be here after driving through hours and hours of Trinidad Marsh territory in Illinois. Glad to make it early this morning, so I will be missing the wildlife visits. I guess the place that can be awake for the auction, which I think probably Kim thinks is farm work, so I'll appreciate the chance to be here. We got a lot of friends in this audience. A lot of you may not even recognize me, so I'm going to talk a little bit about that. I've been a diabetic forever. I was very, very heavy when I got to Jersey. I weighed almost 350 pounds. I weigh 181. I weigh less than I weighed when I was 16. I have a smaller waist than when I was 16. I'm also half as strong as I was when I was 16. But the point is, this is going to be a talk about partnerships. And that plays a role because my partnership with my medical team has been very, very helpful getting my health back. So hopefully it will last a while. I'll be 67 in November. But more importantly, partnerships in every part of our life are so important, and there's no place that's more important than with NAJ and the equity program. And I would argue with a lot of our successful small Jersey marketing businesses today, which had a chance to work with the company. I'm going to go back. I take only 5 minutes, I apologize, but I'll take a little more. I'll go back to the work after Guy Cruz. The guy did a wonderful job working with Calvin. There was research done on cheese yields done at Utah State by a guy named Tony Ernstrom back around the late 70s, early 80s. Understanding the value of protein in the cheese process is still used today. If you do a Google search, that research is going to show up. Ironically, the graduate student did it with a guy named Eric Bastian. When I went to work for Glanbia, he was their lead researcher. So the Jerseys are just kind of creeping everywhere. But the point is, those partnerships with the universities did a lot to lay the groundwork. We had a lot of friends across the country. I'll take you to cottage cheese, for example. And so when you look at your Jersey research dollars, it's more, and I'm getting back to Dave, I got a suggestion about me to be involved with that too. It's what you got to do. And then I want to talk about who are our partners been. They've been a mix. As we move to promote equity, and the pioneer of that, as far as Wisconsin, of course, is Dave Brandow. He's here in the room. Dave and I had some great war stories from working with Sura Cheese in Minnesota, and actually right in this part of Central Equity Co-op here in Southwest Missouri. Because I'll tell you, if anybody can talk to a farmer, Dave, and convince him to chip in, it's Dave Brandow. So those kind of partnerships internally were great. We had a wonderful team of people, communications people. It was great. As far as functionality and how we make the cow profitable, functional type production is important. I remember Jim Kavanaugh, when I first went to Jersey, which is right out of college at Virginia Tech. He had a quote from who had been the CEO of all things the Milk and Shorthorn Association. He said, "Find the functionally efficient, high-producing cow and learn to like the way she looks." And I think back at some of those tools I used that weren't necessarily high-producing, and I should have learned a little quicker when I was reading Chocolate Soldiers to Golden Faithful back in the late 70s. But anyway, by the way, Jimmy, the favorite secret triumph on those cows are a lot better than the base were. Going back to partnership, I think it's important to realize we are part of a dairy supply chain. We are not we versus them. We are not the evil processor versus the evil co-op versus the farmer. we're all part of the system. And the success of equity has had a whole hell of a lot to do with keeping to the facts and understanding the importance of good data. I have a CGM now, monitoring my glucose, and I've lost a lot of my weight because I know when I'm being bad and I can see it. So I can't pretend it's okay. I don't prick my fingers anymore, which I kind of like. But that's really, really key. If you go back to working with the early days, the first co-op to pay on protein was actually Swiss Valley Farm. Now I wasn't, that's Joe Lyons Co-op, and they're marvelous. But the next ones were all private companies. It was Silver Cheese, it was Valley Queen Cheese in South Dakota. It was a company which is now part of, oh heck, I can't think of the name now, but in central Wisconsin, they were the start. The co-op started, other than Swiss Valley, for the most part. They didn't see the value. They have a collective membership for the minority of jerseys, so the members were uncomfortable with it. But the guys that owned their own plants, the fans that owned their own plants, saw the value. And it always keeps in Wisconsin. In fact, if you go back to the Wisconsin meeting for the 25th anniversary, they were at the meeting. You go back and so you look at that, it's always been partnership, and it's always been just the facts. And I think that's really, really key. We can talk about and what's relevant to Jersey. And I'm going to get real direct here. Our make allowances really a Jersey issue. When we don't have protein pricing in our market. When I have worked with plenty of customers now in developing, because I still do this kind of work, by the way. I'm retired, but I can't quite retire. I need to become less of a codependent and take more time off. But class 4, more and more milk going to milk protein concentrates. That's a protein-based product, so there are powder plants that have protein incentives that are significant. Class 2, what's the growth? Cottage cheese and Greek yogurt. What are those? What turns their yield? Protein. So we have incentives. Are we developing incentives for that? Milk, the milk price on milk solids on our protein. Class 1. Who hasn't heard of Fairlife in my case? Because it's a low-carb milk. It's the only milk in my house. They have, for the select milk producers, paid a premium for protein on that milk. Even in Arizona, where it's not a protein order, for some class of protein, the relationship with UVA, there is a protein incentive for milk, so they get the milk in mind. Because they're taking out the sugar, they want the protein, so pay for that. So moving forward, those partnerships are going to be key. And then I'm going to go back to our friends during the February hearing process, which Calvin and Guy bravely started many, many years ago. And that was the Great Basin Order, which is Utah, which is no longer regulated. They found Tony Hirschman, of course, from Utah State, the team there. They had small cheese makers, not co-ops that supported it. The co-ops were reluctant, they kind of stayed back, but they were again, because of membership variations, and again, the majority of the cows, it wasn't like the 30s, Neil, the majority were jerseys or even a big plurality. They weren't able to do that. So those people were key to getting the farm pricing in that first market. Moving back to 2000, we had federal order reform. And that was the process I was really involved with. I came to Jersey in the fall of '93. The following year, the elections of '94, the Republicans took back over the House of Representatives. And Steve Gunderson, who was a great friend of Doc Stramberg, Hammond Road, Jersey, was the guy that really led for us because he understood the value of the cheese industry. And Wisconsin cheesemakers built with partners. So those relationships, those partnerships are great. And how do they work? You're not arrogant. You listen. You know, it's like years ago, a friend of mine, Jim Mulhern from the National Milk Producers, who, by the way, was a lobbyist we hired to get that language in 1996 Farm Bill. Jim did that for us. And it cost, I think, $150,000, but I thought it was awful. And it was 10 words, 15 words, it says, they shall consider this. Paul Ditton told me that was the cheapest 10 words you've ever bought, Mike. Don't worry about it. Right. But we went through that process, got that done. That was Spirit, and our biggest opponent were DFA and Dairy Queen. Our biggest advocates was Brano, the Silver Cheese, the Tillamook was a big supporter, Dairy Bowl, Co-op, all of us was a big supporter. So your friends aren't always who you think they are. And the thing is, we have to remember, we all need each other. Your hay grower needs you, you need your hay grower, your semen need you, you need him. Well, the cheese plant needs your milk, and you need a good market. So how do you work to develop that strong relationship? And I think moving forward, it's going to be less and less about regulation, because a smaller share of the federal order milk, the federal orders are a smaller share of milk as it grows, because they just aren't relevant anymore in a lot of markets. You saw a slide this morning on fluid use. About 18% of all milk is used for exports right now. That's about the same as for fluid. So those ingredients, those components are valuable. Another part, weight. Again, Mr. Change My Diet. I tell everybody, my cheese maker friends all say, do you still eat cheese today? I eat all the cheese I want. But if you grow potatoes, wheat, or rice, I'm not your friend anymore. I'm just gonna get used to that. But the whey protein market, GLP-1 play a very big role. They've changed my diet. I bake with cottage cheese and whey protein ice cream. I never dreamed I'd be making pancakes out of cottage cheese, or I'd be making a biscuit with WPI in it. But that demand has made that protein more valuable than ever. Right now, WPC 80, which is a concentrated protein with dry product, 8% protein, 20% of the solids, is $13 a pound. The whey protein is worth 4 times what the casing's worth right now. Is that going to go away? It will moderate, but again, Jersey cows make more protein for cheese. They also make more protein for whey, and they also make more protein relative to lactose, which generally don't lose money on lactose. So those are things we can continue to working with our industry friends, and recognize that if you're going to be successful, and you're going to lead, and you're going to grow, you think bigger picture. It has to work for everyone. I'll talk about make losses, because I was at IDFA, we haven't get anything updated. Why? We had data. We had data done the same way that was done 3 other times, including when federal orders first changed, back in 2000, saying costs have gone up. Well, who doesn't know costs haven't gone up? So, we, in every co-op has been blending prices, they couldn't afford to pay the cost prices for milk. Be respectful of the data, because if you base your work on data, in the long term, you're going to win. Equity worked not because we worked hard because we worked hard and we had a vision, but it also worked because the reality of the markets was on our side. That continues to be true today, and it continues to be very true. Another thing I'd like to comment on is we got to make sure the cow keeps up. Genomics has made a huge difference in Holstein. The productive life has improved. Fat's gone up tremendously with the help of a lot of the right fat ingredients in your rations, by the way, very expensive. And they have more variation in a lot bigger population, so they have more room to select and to narrow. We have to be sure we don't lose that focus. Again, high producing, functionally efficient. I love good show cow as much as anybody, so I like a 30,000 cow for him, because he's making money. Last thing, beef business. Dave, and I'm glad you brought that up. If there's a place where we need research, we need more fact-based information, I think it is Jersey Crossing. I don't see this changing. We're not going to have dairy cows are going to be the beef mounds of the future, because the range is drying up, we have less water, all those high plains where we graze cows just don't have the carrying capacity they used to have. So are we always going to have $3,000 gold Holstein cows and $2,000 gold Holstein calves? No. But I see that now. Jerseys in Idaho grew like crazy. So I worked for Glanbia. During that time, we actually changed our formula to further incentive. We put more weight on whey proteins in their formula. Grew like crazy. This beef thing is starting to change people's attitudes between that and the availability of high-end Holstein genetics. Should I be breeding straight Jersey? A lot of those terms are crosses. And never forget, they are our customers too, because they're buying Jersey genetics. We should not forget them. And I don't know about you, Bill Mason was mentioned. I had a couple good Berettas, like almost everyone I ever owned. So, I mean, he goes back to an 08 mama at some point. So, don't be too arrogant. Let the data tell us what we need to know. But what do we need to do there? What's the best cross? I know one herd in New York is using Charolais because they want the bigger frame. A lot of them are using Angus. a good friend was using Hereford because he was having trouble with the Angus calf, and a little bit too, like a brown dairy calf. So he thought that was his answer, and then he bought a red heifer from the Chamberlains and had a Charolais bull, and he sold that, and now he's breeding all the Charolais, because the frame size makes a difference. Spotted plants want similar, that's how the plants work, they want frame size similar as they can get. So if you have high quality meat, they have them smaller, you can call it issues. So that's where we need to go next. Where's equity moving? We still have opportunities, we still have incentive programs outside of the cheese yield, class 3. Maybe we can get incentives, and then moving forward, how do we make the cow more profitable overall? Again, focus on production. I'm totally with Dave, I was gonna bring this up before you mention it. Think about the, how we maximize revenue from beef, because it's not going away. So, I'm very grateful for the chance to be here. This is a group of I never had a job that was more fun. I got to help all my friends. You know, Kroger gave me a better retirement than I would have had otherwise, but I got to tell you, I don't have that many friends there. So, I'm very, very glad to be asked, glad I got through all the tornado warnings yesterday, and wish everyone a successful meeting, and sorry for going so long. All right, thank you.
Thanks, Mike, and appreciate you putting forth the effort to travel and be here with us today. I really appreciate your comments. Next, I'd like to ask Eric Metzger, longtime Jersey employee, and served as general manager of NAJ for 2 decades.
Thank you, Neil. I see that. Well, I appreciate being here and seeing a lot of good friends again. My comments are going to be pretty succinct, and I don't think I can say it any better than I did 10 years ago at the 40th anniversary when we were in California. The success of the equity program and mobile component pricing, consider this. Every market that converted from fat skim pricing to mobile component pricing stuck with mobile component pricing. We never had a market revert back to fat skim pricing. Nobody said, you know, this component pricing isn't working for us, we gotta go back. The producers never said it, the processors never said it, there was never even a thought or a proposal to go back to fat skim pricing. And if that's not the measure of success, I don't know what is. The other comment I would make is, in addition, milk pricing is paramount. But there's always these interesting side issues that we've come up with through the years. For example, the value-added 101 workshops. So people who wanted to expand but didn't necessarily want to milk more cows, to help them do the vertical integration. And I still remember the day that Dave Enders called me and said he was just frustrated with his nutritionist and said, he's just trying to feed my jerseys like little Holsteins, and that's not right. We got to do something about that. And so as a staff, we developed a series of videos that are still out there on the AJCA YouTube channel on how to feed jerseys, and got some of the leading nutritionists in the nation to work with us on that. So yes, we always want to be focused on milk pricing, but there's going to be ancillary issues that come up that can serve our membership well also. So thank you, and I'll have more extensive comments Saturday night.
I always count on Eric to get right to the point. Appreciate that. And
So, next up, I'd like to, reintroduce to you a guy I call Mr. Equity. And, the reason for that is, when Dave and I were co-fieldmen, and, he was way up yonder in Wisconsin, and I was way down south in the southeast. Pre-REAP, implementation, we had what we called equity cards that we carried in our pocket every day. And we were provided from the office a list of equity members in our area, and every time I went to Newberry or wherever, where there was several Jersey herds, I knew which ones were not on equity yet, John, so I'd have that in my pocket, you know, and I'd make my pitch, you know, and I a lot of times didn't have much success. And David doggone, and see, they tracked that in the office, and Lori would send out, you know, Dave is the equity star of the month, you know, he got 5 new equity members, and I don't know what's wrong with the rest of you guys, you know. So we pretty soon we started calling him Mr. Equity, and he deserved it, and it was a respectful gesture. So Dave Brendow, a pioneer, as Mike labeled you a little while ago, come forward and share your thoughts with us.
Thank you, Neil. I'm going to be a little different, because I've been known to be different. The most important thing is in the room. I'm a veteran, I'm a Vietnam veteran, Agent Orange survivor, and I believe in research. I'm going to go back to the early 70s. I had the opportunity to meet Joe Lyon, who was my mentor, and he came to my house and spent the night with me, loading out. We were still milking cows at the farm at the time, and he made a believer out of me that evening with myself and my wife, and I invited a fellow Jersey breeder next door. But anyway, I could tell you a lot of stories. I think the important thing is I want to thank each and every one of you that is an equity member or was, because you as a group made it possible, and you gave us the finances to go out and tell the story. And being from Wisconsin, there's a lot of history in milk marketing. We dairied, I'm still on the farm, and it's been in the family 125 years. But the interesting thing about me, people don't know, is in the early years, my father was my field man. My milk hauler was my cousin. And when Joe visited me and told me about equity and cheese yield and things like that, it made me stop and think. And with the relationship I had with my father and the milk hauler, I made a decision to move my milk to a tri-state milk that was paying, I think 10 cents a point on protein at the time. And so I switched. And I wasn't a very popular person in the neighborhood for a long time. But to make a long story short, is my father worked for Wisconsin Dairies, or foremost farmers. He retired, and then in part-time he ended up working for Narwhal, buying milk on cheese yield that we had worked with. And so we kind of went full circle. The important thing is that don't ever give up. Bill Mason and I kidded me because I made a trip out there and I signed the guy up in equity, and he had already filed bankruptcy. So like Bill was saying, that's how good I wasn't. I don't think I was that good, but I do know from with my past experiences in my life, I get a little emotional, but I find is the important thing. For any veterans in here, I thank you, and myself, it's been a challenge. The equity program, the great thing about it was factual. We wasn't making anything up. We were telling it like it was. Does anybody in here know what a UD2 protein tester is? I had a chance to do that. Calvin bought one. We worked with it in different plants and ended up selling it back. I think the NFO bought it. But that's where we used the dye, the infrared, drip the milk into the infrared reading to get the protein test. And that was back in the late 70s, early 80s. But the thing that I want to remember, it takes all of us to make this happen. I've been an equity member myself for over 40 years, I guess. And it's been a big part of my life. We've got a future, but it's going to take all of us to continue. And the other thing is, if I go over 5 minutes, that's your problem. Because in the Army, they said, you got 5 minutes, you already used 3. But the important thing is that we have to work together. And I'm a firm believer in knocking on doors and looking people in the eye and talking to them on a one-on-one. I know technology is great, and we all use it now, but there's a place and time for that. We need to communicate on a one-to-one basis. The association has got some challenges, which we've talked about. If we all hang together, we'll accomplish some good things. And I want to thank Kelvin Covington, who was also kind of a mentor, and we traveled a lot of miles together. Mike Brown, he was hard to keep in line, but I was, hard at it. He turned out pretty good. And, the other thing is that many of you don't know is NAJ formed Central Equity Co-op here in Missouri. It's a small co-op. This is kind of like my second home, but it's still in existence today. And so, to me, that tells that the importance of the equity program and what we've done and what can be done. In my early years, there was a producer in Edelweiss, which is one of the first plants to go on cheese yield. We made farm calls, and there was a great beef producer. And on the cheese yield farm, he was going to make $3.50 for 100 weight. Put his milk on a different truck and go to a different plant. And you have to take chances in life. And some of them turn out, some of them don't. But I want to thank everybody for the support they've given equity over the years and continue, because I do think there's a future there. But we've got some challenges. And with that, thank you.
Thanks, Dave. Kim, I hope you're recording all of these. And Dave, we all collectively appreciate your military service. Absolutely. Thank you for that. I have with me we invited a lot of former employees to comment or appear here to speak to you or send comments. And a lady named Sarah Gilbert, who I think is in Iowa now, worked as Eric Metzger's assistant for several years. And she sent me a nice set of comments I'd like to share with you. She says, working for National All Jersey Incorporated gave me an incredible opportunity to visit herds across the country, especially herds doing on-farm processing, to market their own All Jersey products. two things held true, no matter where I visited. No two operations were alike, and the Jersey cow excelled in all of them. When I talked to producers about why they chose Jerseys, they answered with reasons we're all familiar with. Manageable size, grazing efficiency, they look beautiful on our logo, but above all, their milk was right for making premium products. Taking something that producers know individually and gathering the evidence, explaining the science, going processor by processor, and federal order by federal order to ultimately change the industry. That is the incredible work of Project Equity. Maybe this one. Battery must have died in that one. She continued, it has improved milk marketing for producers across the industry, not just those milking jerseys. Rising tide lifts all boats, you know. Having the leadership and the consistency for 50 years of improving markets for above average milk is truly an accomplishment to celebrate. As consumers demand more and more to know the story behind their food, no one has a better story to tell than the Jersey cow. Efficient production, high protein, and high quality, the Little Brown Cow remains set up for success. But it takes an organization committed to monitoring changes, educating processors, producers, university researchers, government representatives, and more, still pushing forward for equity. Congratulations on 50 years of Project Equity. The next 50 will be brighter because of the work done by the visionaries that started and the producers that continue to support and work today. Sarah Gilbert. Appreciate Sarah's comments, and when I saw this, I told Kim, she said, what's it look like? I said, well, very much articulated like Sarah would, you know. So, at this time, as part of our program, we want to recognize charter members of the equity program. We have a few of those are present today. Vicki, would you help manage that table for us? Appreciate that. So, Graper Jersey Farm. Cal is here. Please come forward if you're here. And we have a small plaque for those that were charter members. And this is just, we're interpreting this as people who contributed for 50 years. And then Wickstrom Jersey Farm Incorporated in California. Olive Farms Partnership from California. CNS Livestock, Richard Kloss Family, California. Charles, Chuck, and Mark Olam from California. David and Donna Cundy from Iowa, and their family continues. I don't know if Jennifer's going to be here any this week or not. And then, although we lost Ray and Margaret Schooley in the last year and a half, they contributed for 50 years. As you all know, tremendous supporters of the Jersey breed. Ray and Margaret Schooley from out here in Missouri. Summit Farm Incorporated from Iowa. John is here, and John serves on our Jersey team. Spar Jersey Farm in Ohio. Mollybrook Farms in Vermont. James Alleman family from California. H. Barlow from Kentucky. Dutch Hollow Farm from New York.
and David and Greg Chamberlain from New York, and Finelli Dairy in California, and Hillmar Cheese Company. There's a tremendous amount of financial support represented just in this short list because of the long-term commitment they made. There are a lot of other herds that could be represented if we were 47, 48. I mean, the momentum picked up right quick after the first year. So let's join me in thanking these You're gonna get a photo op over there. All of you. Corey, why don't you come up, present to them? That'd be appropriate to have the president of NAJ on. Okay, we're running a little tight on time now, aren't we? All right, so Walter Owens. Walter Owens, like to hear from Walter Owens. I switched these out.
Well, I think everybody did before me did what they said. I believe that a lot of our stories are very similar. I truly believe equity is the reason the Jersey cow is who she is, the most efficient, most profitable cow there is, the cow for the breed of choice for many, many of us. I think the Jersey organization is in a far better position because of equity than they would be if there had been no equity program. It brought breeders in, it's made the cow better, made more cows. Can't say enough about it. I know in the early 80s, when we switched to component pricing, went to Idlewild, which Mike mentioned earlier, and we gained $2.53 a hundred on our first milk check from component pricing, and we gained income on every check since. The return from your equity dollar spent is unbelievable how much it is. Got to thank everybody that's done it and encourage anybody that hasn't to participate because there is a great return on that. And in the early years, you got to thank Gallup Covington and Dave Brando. They were led the charge to bring the component pricing in, and it was because equity afforded them the money to go out and do this. Our dad traveled with them some and thought what a great pair they were to bring this forward. And I think we just need to keep leading the charges. Everybody needs to step up and do their part. We need to keep equity in the forefront. Thank you.
So thank you, Walter, and Walter had served several years on the National Jersey Board as well as the AJCA Board. Mr. Graper, also former director on both boards.
Got to make this thing Grady sized here now. Hey, if I seem really excited today, it's because 1 year and about 4 hours ago, the vacuum pump at the world headquarters went silent for the final time and I'm out of jail. Also, I'm having a big week. I want to thank you for the hardware today because Earlier this week, I was invited back to my final AM Associated Milk Producers Board meeting to get my plaque for 47 years of elected official service. On the way home, I called my oldest daughter, Tracy, who is in charge of assembling all my plaques and everything in Fellowship Hall in church on the occasion of my eventual funeral. And I guess I'll have to call her again here, that we got a couple more that she needs to stack up there now, so.
Boy, don't forget the cheese cutting board.
Oh, yeah, we got that too. But anyway, when I was a kid, like Rodney Dangerfield, I got no respect. Everybody gave me crap about my skinny little jerseys at the fair. Well, I could have, felt bad and kind of given in to the criticism and stuff, but no, we had a pretty efficient cow. We bred a better cow. Talk more about that later. And we're still here, and most of them. I agree, everything about the equity program has said. I'll just provide a little more of our local flavor and leave it at that. My grandfather went on grade A in 1952, and then when my folks took over in 55, the grandfolks moved, they kind of went, regressed, moved to the other farm, and he sold milk and cream cans for the rest of his career, which concluded in 1965. But he was served on the board of directors of Farmers Produce in Freeman, South Dakota, which was a butter and egg selling cooperative, which was very large in its day, and every town had its creamery. But today, Freeman, South Dakota is one of the plants owned and operated as the high temperature powder plant operated by Associated Milk Producers today. Then my father was serving with Sioux Valley Milk Producers, and I recall going with all the Metzger herds, Summit Farm, Multi-Rose, Fred Estelle jerseys, and a lot of great herds there, as well as a few of the Brown Swiss people, going to visit with the folks at Sioux Valley Milk Producers. Hey, we should get paid a little extra for our milk. And they, no way, no how, no. But we knew for a fact that they were segregating all the high protein milk and taking it to Terrace Park Dairy, operated in those days by Alan Ozzie Schock. I know cottage cheese has been made forever, but they did something to perfect the manufacture of cottage cheese. So they bought all the high protein, high quality milk at a low price, and they profited amongst themselves through the cottage cheese manufacture. Fast forward to my formative years in about 1975-76, President Joe Lyon and AJCA Director Don Metzger paid us a visit, and they're sitting in the living room at the world headquarters visiting with my brother, my parents, and myself, and they got this new deal called Project Equity. You can donate 2 cents a hundredweight. Well, farming today, it's all about economics. You've got to take your revenue stream where you can find them. And we figured, an investment of 2 cents a hundredweight to get paid better in our milk, well, this is a great deal. And we obviously signed up right away. Fast forward to years later when I'm serving on the Associated Milk Producers corporate board, and the national milk program called CWT was being debated. And there's a couple of us Jersey guys in there with all Holstein guys. They debated, and we did participate for a short time, but then fell off. But to talk these guys into donating 2 cents a hundredweight into the CWT program to reduce the overall production of milk, therefore increasing the value of the rest of the milk, it just was a tremendous uphill battle. Whereas the Jersey people have much more foresight. How many of us in this room and in the past, we all invested 2 cents a hundredweight or so in the equity program, and it has paid magnanimous dividends. And so, I guess everything about equity has already been said, but the positive investments, that we've made in our farming career, yeah, there's a lot of things that worked out great, a lot of things that didn't, but premium Jersey genetics, where you can buy the best, I'm not the greatest cattle breeder here, a lot of others, we all had tremendous cows. What we ended up with were tremendous cows compared to what we had 50 years ago. I think a lot of you would say the same in your own herds. And for that fact, it's not that we're that brilliant. I give the sire analysts a lot of credit, because our Jersey sire analysts and dairy sire analysts pick a lot of the bulls and the traits that have benefited all of us. And the investment we're charter members of Genetic Recovery, Equity, REAP, the programs that have been fostered by the Jersey Association and the Jersey boards, Jersey leadership, have been amongst the best investments we've ever made. And we want to thank you for putting us into a position. Production agriculture is a very, very difficult business. It takes a lot of knowledge, a lot of work, a lot of capital. But participating in the Jersey programs has put us in a position to excel. And I thank you very much for those who had an opportunity to help everybody with our programs. So, thank you.
Thanks, Cal. You always do a great job articulating the message. As I'm listening to Kim, don't get too nervous, but I'm going to go off script for a second. As I've listened to these presentations and comments, and we've thanked everyone consistently across time who supported equity, I want to single some out who don't get component pricing. Y'all want to stand up? Equity members who don't get component pricing. You're in the room. Jimmy? Now, we still got work to do. And if you're sitting here going, this thing's over with, I got news for you. It ain't over to them. And they have supported, those herds that just stood up and on equity for a long, long, long time. And they supported it so you could get more money for your milk in Iowa or wherever. And the only benefit they got out of it was the value of their Jersey heifers that could sell them a little easier. Rising tide lifts all boats. Maybe it's unrealistic in all orders, I get that. But these people have been supportive too. I didn't call names, but I wanted to make that point with y'all. It ain't over with yet, and it won't be. There will always be issues that arise that are different, that we need to focus on, and maybe we will have to work with a different strategy. So, we're about out of time, aren't we? I think what we're going to do is, I'm going to ask NAJ President Corey Luke to come up and wrap things up. Appreciate everyone, and because we want to stay on time. We got a full schedule today, don't we? All right.
Okay, y'all's gonna have to bear with me because I'm following icons in this industry that I have a lot of respect for, and I don't know why they put me last. First, I want to thank everyone for being here today. Your presence here is a strong representation of what the Jersey breed has stood for the past 50 years and what will continue to stand for the next 50 years. Today, as we celebrate 50 years of Project Equity, I want to share a bit about the history of how we got here and where we are today and where we want to hope to go in the future. Equity was started as a platform to obtain fair and equitable price for all high solids milk. Supporters of the program include owners of all dairy breeds. This effort was instrumental as NAJ moved forward with the idea of securing ensuring the national acceptance of multi-component pricing. Project Equity was bold because our beloved Jersey Queen of Quality has always stood apart from other breeds. This program helped change the way the dairy industry viewed milk. Rather than simply viewing milk as a commodity, Project Equity focused on the value of milk being determined by components, quality, and the performance it delivers. Equity helped to make the case that producers should be paid fairly and equitably for true value of milk and by the byproducts it produces. The mission of Project Equity is just as important today as it was 50 years ago. The Jersey cow continues to offer uniqueness to the dairy industry by offering milk that is naturally rich in butter, fat, and protein. The components that create value are essential to dairy products consumers enjoy every day. As demand for protein-rich foods and value-added dairy products continue to grow, Jersey milk is well positioned to hit the mark. As the dairy industry evolves, NAJ and Equity is still the only voice left standing to promote and sustain an equitable price for higher value milk. The consumer and industry health leaders are even finding that dairy fat and protein are vital to a healthy and nutritious diet for both young and old. Over the next 50 years, the Jersey breed and its breeders must continue to push forward with innovative and to improve the breed, advocate and promote the value of these important components, and to receive fair price at the farm level. Our focus must remain on showing the natural advantages of Jersey milk while continuing to improve the traits that make the breed so valuable. NAJ will assist AJCA to rise to the challenge of focusing on the correct traits to maintain and improve component advantages. NAJ will work to assist producers who wish to add value-added products such as bottling Jersey milk, marketing cheese and other byproducts, and advertising our superior milk. As stewards of the breed, we must continue to tell the story that the Queen of Quality, and we cannot refer to others to tell the story for us. Promotion is key, advocacy is key, equity is key. As long as there are Jersey cows and Jersey breeders, National All Jersey Incorporated will continue to lead the way in promoting Jersey milk, finding and protecting our markets, and ensuring that the Jersey cow has a strong and profitable place in the future of dairy. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Corey. Announcements for the rest of the day.
Absolutely. Just ask the speakers to come back up so we can get a picture.
Okay, we need all the speakers to please come back to the front of the room when we adjourn, because Kim needs to get a picture. And we have a little gift for them too. Yeah. So one other announcement they asked me, there are all Jersey and Queen of Quality and different Jersey labeled coasters in the back of the room on that table. Help yourself. There's plenty of them and different, I think there's about 4 different varieties. So. Anything else from anyone?
We'll be right back here for a round table.
The round table is back in this room. Thank you again for being with us this morning, and thanks to all the equity supporters. Appreciate it.
I'm not against whatever.